I don't even know why I'm writing this. Maybe because I can't sleep. Maybe because the walls of this apartment feel smaller when I'm quiet. Maybe because I've said the same story so many times in my head that I need to get it out somewhere, and if strangers read it, maybe it'll stop echoing. I'm 27. I live in Chicago. I work in marketing, though lately it feels more like I just push words around on screens and hope no one notices I'm not really saying anything. I've been married to Daniel for 4 years. We met when I was 21. I was the intern at the company he worked for, and he was the guy who wore dress shirts without the tie, like he wanted to seem effortless but put together. He had that kind of smile that made you feel like he already knew something about you. I didn't fall for him immediately. It was slower than that, quieter. He used to bring me coffee when I stayed late, and he'd linger just long enough to make me wonder if it meant something. When he finally kissed me, it felt inevitable, like the universe had just been waiting for me to catch up. We got married 2 years later. Small wedding, downtown loft, candles everywhere, the kind of wedding people say looks like it came off Pinterest. He cried during the vows, and everyone told me how lucky I was. I believed them. For a while, everything really was good. Not perfect, that's not real, but steady. We had the kind of relationship that looked like a rhythm: morning coffee, texts at lunch, dinners where we talked about work and plans and stupid memes. He made me laugh. I felt safe. The first crack didn't feel like a crack. It felt like nothing, just small absences. He started working late more often. Said he was leading a new project, had to be at the office, had to stay ahead of the deadlines. I believed him because that's what you do when you trust someone. You don't question every late night. You don't assume the worst. It's funny how you can live inside a lie and not notice the walls closing in. The night everything shifted, I was home alone, half watching some reality show while scrolling through my phone. Daniel had said he'd be home late again, and I'd stopped asking when. My phone buzzed with a text, not from him, from a number I didn't know. It said, "You should check his work messages." Just that, no context, no name. My first thought was that it was spam, some scam. But then I noticed my heart was pounding, like my body already knew something my mind didn't. I told myself not to look, but of course I did. Daniel's laptop was on the desk, still open. I don't even know what I was expecting, maybe some email that looked suspicious, something that could still be explained away. But when I opened his messages, the truth was right there, unfiltered and ugly. Her name was Allison. She worked with him. There were weeks of messages, late-night chats, inside jokes, pictures. I scrolled through them numb, reading things like "wish you were here" and "you looked amazing today" and "don't tell her, not yet." The world didn't explode. It just folded in on itself, like everything I'd been living was suddenly paper-thin. I sat there until the sun came up, not crying, just staring at the screen, rereading the same sentences until they blurred. I remember thinking, this can't be real. Not him, not us. When he came home, I was still sitting there. He looked tired, loosened his tie, gave me that distracted smile. "Hey," he said, like everything was normal. I didn't scream. I didn't throw anything. I just said, "Who's Allison?" He froze. That half-second of silence told me everything. He tried to talk, to explain, to soften it, but the truth was already alive between us, loud and undeniable. He said it just happened. That he didn't mean for it to go that far. That he still loved me. I remember looking at him and realizing I didn't even recognize his face. It wasn't just betrayal, it was disorientation. Like someone had swapped out the person I'd built my life with and replaced him with a stranger wearing his voice. He cried. I didn't. Maybe because part of me had already known. Maybe because there's only so much disbelief your body can handle before it just goes quiet. He slept on the couch that night. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, the word "why" looping in my head until it stopped meaning anything. The days after blurred together. Friends called. My sister offered to come stay with me. I told everyone I was fine. I was. I'd wake up and feel this wave of nausea, not from heartbreak, exactly, but from the weight of existing inside a life that had been rewritten without my permission. He wanted to fix it. Therapy, apologies, promises. He said it was a mistake, but mistakes are when you spill coffee or miss an appointment. This was a choice. repeated, protected. Still, I didn't leave. Not right away. Because love doesn't switch off like a light. Because I wanted to believe that maybe, somehow, we could rebuild. But rebuilding means tearing down first. And neither of us wanted to look at the ruins. He started therapy before I did, as if being the first one to book an appointment might prove something. "I'm serious about making it right," he told me. I nodded because I didn't know what else to do. Everything that came out of his mouth was just sound, not meaning. I went with him the first time. The therapist, a woman with kind eyes and a soft voice, asked how long we'd been married, when the affair started, how we both felt sitting there. I remember thinking that how we felt was too small a question. I felt like my life had been cut into pieces, and someone was asking me to pick which piece I wanted to talk about first. Daniel said he was ashamed, that it was a moment of weakness, stress, pressure. I sat there watching him make words out of what he'd done, hearing him shape them into something that could almost sound like a mistake if you squinted hard enough. I didn't say much that day. I didn't trust myself to. When we left, he took my hand in the elevator. His palm was warm and familiar, and it made my stomach twist. The muscle memory of love doesn't die just because the logic of it does. I didn't pull away, but I didn't hold on either. The therapist told us to talk more, so we did, or tried. Every conversation felt like trying to breathe underwater. I'd ask questions I didn't really want answers to, and he'd answer in ways that made everything worse. "Did you love her?" "No." "Did you think about me?" "Yes, that's what made it so hard." "How many times?" "Does that matter?" It mattered. It all mattered. For weeks, our apartment smelled like distance. I'd cook dinner and he'd try to make small talk, and I'd feel my throat close up. Sometimes I'd look at him and think of the man who brought me coffee in college, who made me laugh so hard I couldn't breathe, who cried at our wedding. And then I'd see the other version, the one who typed those words to her. The one who lied while looking me straight in the eye. They lived in the same body. That was the hardest part. I started spending more time at work. I'd sit in the office long after everyone left, staring at my computer screen, pretending to finish projects that didn't matter. It was easier than going home. My coworker, Jordan, started noticing. He was the kind of person people liked immediately, sharp, funny, too observant for his own good. He didn't push, just started bringing me coffee the way Daniel used to. One night, when I stayed late, he offered to walk me out. I said yes, because I didn't want to be alone. We stood outside the building, the city humming around us. He asked if I was okay. I said I didn't know. He didn't ask more, just stood there waiting. It was the first time in months that silence didn't feel like suffocation. When I got home that night, Daniel was asleep on the couch again. I stood there for a long time, watching him breathe, and realized I didn't feel love or hate, just exhaustion, the kind that settles in your bones. He kept trying, though. Flowers, notes, promises that didn't sound like promises anymore. And part of me wanted to believe it could work, that people could mess up and come back from it. But another part of me, the quieter part that I'd ignored for too long, knew something fundamental had cracked. Trust isn't rebuilt by words. It's rebuilt by time, and we'd run out of it. One morning, I woke up before him. The light was soft, the kind of golden that makes everything look like it could be beautiful again. I watched him sleeping, and for the first time I thought, I can't do this anymore. There wasn't a big fight, no dramatic ending, just a quiet conversation over coffee. I told him I couldn't keep trying to be okay when I was, that I forgave him but I couldn't stay. He didn't argue. Maybe he'd known too. He cried, I didn't. I packed my things that afternoon. My sister came with boxes. Daniel stood in the doorway the whole time, not saying anything. When I left, he said, "I'll always love you." I said, "I hope you do better next time." That night, I checked into a small apartment I'd found online. The walls were bare, the bed was too soft, and everything smelled like someone else's life. But it was mine now. My space, my air. The first week alone felt like detox. I'd catch myself reaching for my phone to text him, then stop. I'd cook too much food and forget to eat it. I cried once, really cried, and it felt clean, like clearing something out of me. I told myself I was free, but the truth was, I didn't know who I was without him. My identity had been us for so long that being just me felt like walking around without skin. But little by little, I started to rebuild. Morning runs, reading before bed, talking to friends I'd lost touch with. It was mundane, but it was real. A few weeks later, Jordan asked if I wanted to get dinner. Just dinner, no expectations. I hesitated but said yes. We went to this small Italian place near the river. He didn't ask about Daniel. We talked about music, bad TV shows, the weird stuff people do on public transit. For 2 hours, I forgot about the ache. When he walked me home, he didn't try to kiss me. He just said, "You seem lighter tonight." And I was. I don't know what will happen next. I'm not ready for anything serious. But for the first time in a long time, I'm curious again. About people, about life, about myself. I thought infidelity would be the end of my story. Maybe it's just the middle. The weeks after that dinner with Jordan felt like stepping out into sunlight after months underground. It wasn't about him, not really. It was about breathing again, about realizing I'd been holding my breath for so long that I'd forgotten what air felt like. I stopped checking my phone every hour. I stopped counting days since the last time Daniel texted, though sometimes he still did polite check-ins at first, then the occasional "thinking about you." I didn't respond. Not because I was angry anymore, but because I didn't owe him a version of myself that kept shrinking to fit his comfort. Work became easier once I stopped using it as an escape. I found small routines that made the days feel like mine. Coffee from the cart outside the office instead of the kitchen at home, walking the long way to the train just to feel the city wake up around me. The air smelled like bakery sugar and car exhaust and something alive. I started noticing people again. The woman who always hummed at the bus stop, the old man who fed pigeons near the river, the teenage couple who kissed like the world might stop if they didn't. Jordan and I kept running into each other, half by chance, half because we wanted to. He was easy to be around, not demanding, not careful in the way people get when they sense you're fragile. We'd grab lunch or a drink after work, talk about nothing serious. Sometimes I'd catch him looking at me like he wanted to ask something but didn't. One night, as we were walking back from a late movie, he said, "You know you don't have to be afraid of being happy again, right?" It startled me because I didn't think anyone could see that, the way I still held myself like something breakable. I didn't answer, he didn't push. At home that night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, thinking about what happiness even meant. With Daniel, happiness had always been tied to peace. No arguments, no distance, no sharp edges. Now I wanted something different. I wanted truth, even if it was messy. I wanted to be seen, not worshipped. There's a difference between being loved for how you make someone feel and being loved for who you actually are. The next morning, I went for a run before sunrise. The streets were quiet, the lake still half asleep. I stopped by the pier and just watched the sky turn pink. For the first time since everything fell apart, I didn't think about what I'd lost. I thought about what might come next. Weeks passed. I started painting again, something I hadn't done since college. It wasn't good, but it didn't matter. There was something grounding about watching color bleed across canvas. Jordan came by one evening when I was halfway through a messy abstract and said, "That's you, isn't it?" I laughed and told him it was supposed to be a sunset. "Same thing," he said. One night after a few drinks, he kissed me. It wasn't fireworks. It was something quieter, more deliberate. I felt my chest tighten with a mix of fear and warmth. I pulled away first, said I wasn't ready. He nodded, said, "Then I'll wait." And he did, no pressure, just presence. It took me another month before I called him again. We went out for ramen, walked by the river, held hands. It felt normal, which scared me more than anything, because normal meant possible, and possible meant risk. The first time I let him stay over, I couldn't sleep. Every touch felt like a question I didn't know how to answer, but he didn't rush me. He just lay there, tracing small circles on my wrist, whispering, "You're safe." I believed him, not completely, but enough. It's strange how healing doesn't announce itself. There's no single day when you wake up healed. It's 1,000 small moments when you realize the weight is lighter, when a song that used to hurt doesn't anymore, when you see a couple laughing and you smile instead of ache. One morning, about a year after I left Daniel, I got an email from him. Short, just, "I hope you're happy." I stared at it for a long time before replying. That was it. No bitterness, no nostalgia, just truth. I don't know if what I have with Jordan will last forever. I'm not sure forever even exists the way we're taught to believe it does. What I do know is that when he looks at me, I don't feel small. I don't feel like I'm performing. I just feel like myself, messy, uncertain, whole enough for now. Sometimes I walk past our old apartment on the way to work. The windows look the same. I imagine someone else living there, loving there, fighting there. And I think about the girl who used to stand in that kitchen, believing her life would always look a certain way. I want to tell her she's going to lose everything she thought she couldn't live without, and she's going to survive it. She's going to wake up one day and realize the worst thing that happened to her was also the thing that made space for something better. Last week, Jordan and I went to the lake. It was cold and windy, the kind of weather that makes your eyes water. He threw pebbles into the water and asked what I was thinking about. I said, "How strange it is that everything I thought was an ending turned out to be a beginning." He smiled and said, "That's how you know you're finally living." And I guess I am. Not perfectly, not constantly, but honestly. Some nights I still wake up from dreams where Daniel is apologizing and I'm forgiving him. But then I roll over and see the skyline through the window, the pulse of the city still alive, and I remember. I made it out. I'm still here. I'm still choosing myself. The first time I noticed the distance again, it wasn't dramatic. It never is. It's the small things that go first. The way he stopped texting me good morning. The way our conversations began to drift into logistics instead of laughter. I told myself it was normal, that comfort replaces intensity, that maybe this was what healthy love looks like. But sometimes comfort and indifference wear the same face. Jordan had started taking on more freelance projects. He'd always been ambitious, but this time it felt different. He worked late, his mind somewhere else. I'd ask how his day was, and he'd say, "Busy," like the word itself should explain everything. I didn't want to be the girlfriend who demanded more, so I smiled and said, "That's good." But at night, when he fell asleep next to me, I'd stare at the ceiling and feel that old familiar ache, the one that whispers, "You're losing him." I tried to silence it. I tried to believe I'd already learned that lesson. One Friday, I stopped by his studio after work with takeout, a small gesture that used to make him light up. He wasn't there. His phone went straight to voicemail. I waited, ate half my dinner cold, and finally left it on his table. When he came home hours later, he looked surprised, almost guilty, when he saw the containers. "Sorry," he said. "Got caught up." It wasn't a lie, but it wasn't the truth either. We went through the motions for weeks. Date nights that felt like rehearsals, sex that felt like muscle memory. Every time I tried to talk, he'd say he was tired, or that things were just a lot lately. I could feel him slipping through my fingers, and I didn't know how to hold on without breaking us both. The irony wasn't lost on me that I was now on the other side, the one sensing something unspoken, the one pretending not to see the signs. It felt almost karmic, like life had come full circle to remind me that love, no matter how new or pure, is still fragile in human hands. One night, I asked him straight out if there was someone else. He didn't deny it immediately, which told me everything. "It's not like that," he said. "I just don't know what I want anymore." There's a particular kind of pain that comes when you realize you've become someone's uncertainty. It's not anger. It's grief. Not for what's ending, but for how much of yourself you gave trying to make it stay. He packed a bag a week later, said he needed space to think. I didn't beg him to stay. I'd done that once in my life already, and it didn't save anything. I just watched him go. The apartment felt heavier after that, quieter but not peaceful. I kept seeing traces of him everywhere, his coffee mug, his jacket by the door, the dent in the pillow where he used to sleep. Every object felt like an echo. Days passed in fragments. Work, home, silence. I tried to fill the hours with things that used to ground me, painting, running, meeting friends, but everything felt hollow. I told myself it was temporary, that heartbreak has a half-life, that it would fade. But it didn't, not this time. Because this wasn't betrayal. It was erosion. Slow, invisible, impossible to fight. He called once 2 months later, said he missed me, said he thought about coming back. I didn't ask why he hadn't. I just said, "I hope you find what you're looking for." He was quiet for a long time, then whispered, "I already did. I just didn't know how to keep it." That was the last time we spoke. It's strange how life keeps moving, even when you feel like yours has stopped. The world doesn't pause for heartbreak, people still laugh on the street, coffee still tastes the same, and somehow the sun still rises every morning as if nothing's changed. But something has changed, something in me. For the first few weeks after Jordan left, I tried to keep everything exactly as it was, like he'd just gone on a long trip and would come back when he was ready. I'd fold his shirts even though he wasn't here to wear them. I'd play the same playlist we used to listen to while cooking dinner, even though the silence between songs felt louder than any noise. It was a way of pretending I still had control, that I could hold onto something if I just stayed still long enough. But control is a myth we tell ourselves to survive the chaos. One morning, I woke up and realized I hadn't checked my phone for his messages in days. That realization broke me more than his leaving ever did. Because it meant I was finally learning to let go, not because I wanted to, but because holding on had become too heavy. People like to say closure is about understanding why something ended, but that's not true. Closure is accepting that sometimes you'll never know. Sometimes the story just stops in the middle of a sentence. And you have to learn to keep reading your life without the rest of that paragraph. I started walking a lot after that. Miles and miles through the city, headphones in, eyes on the ground, my thoughts running like background noise. I'd pass cafes we used to visit, couples holding hands, and wonder if they knew how fragile they were. How love can look solid until one day it's just dust between your fingers. There was this one moment, about 3 months later, when I ran into Ben, my ex before Jordan, the man who first taught me what betrayal feels like. It was at a crosswalk downtown. He looked almost the same, maybe a little older, a little softer. He smiled when he saw me, that tentative kind of smile that says I hope you're okay, even if I don't deserve to ask. We talked for maybe 5 minutes, small talk, surface level, polite. But when I walked away, something inside me finally loosened. I realized I didn't feel anger anymore. Not for him, not even for Jordan. Just a kind of quiet sadness for all the versions of myself I'd been, the girl who thought love could fix people, the woman who thought being needed was the same as being loved, the one who thought she could outlast loneliness by holding tighter to someone else. That night I went home and deleted the last photo I had of Jordan on my phone, not out of bitterness, but out of peace. Because the truth is, some people don't stay. Some loves don't survive honesty, timing, or fear. But that doesn't mean they weren't real. It just means they weren't forever. And maybe that's okay. Maybe forever isn't the point. Maybe the point is that for a while, you saw someone clearly and were seen in return, even if only for a moment. It took me a long time to stop blaming myself, to stop thinking love was a test I kept failing. I started therapy. I picked up painting again. I traveled alone for the first time, a small coastal town where no one knew me. I spent entire afternoons sitting by the water, letting the waves drown out my thoughts. And one day, as the tide came in, I realized I wasn't waiting anymore. Not for him, not for anyone. I wasn't healed. Healing is too clean a word for something so human, but I was alive, and that was enough. Now, when I think of love, it feels quieter. Less like fire, more like light through curtains, soft, temporary, beautiful because it doesn't last forever. I still believe in it, even after everything. Maybe especially after everything. Sometimes I still dream of Jordan. In the dream, we're sitting on that old couch, his head on my shoulder, my fingers tracing the back of his hand. We don't speak, but it feels like understanding. And when I wake up, there's no ache, just gratitude that once, for a moment, I got to know that kind of closeness. If there's a lesson in all of this, it's that love doesn't always save you. Sometimes it breaks you open so you can finally see yourself. Sometimes it leaves you so that you can learn to stay. I used to think endings meant failure. Now I know they're just the part where you learn who you are when the story no longer revolves around someone else. And maybe that's the most honest kind of love there is, the kind that teaches you how to be whole, even after it's gone.